What's your favorite drink? You're drinking water. Okay. So if you think that like there are 4 people and we could have 4 different drinks, we're going to come up with 16 combinations, right? A classroom is that much more complicated. We all know that, right? These are just a few of the millions of variables that we encounter every day in our classroom. And some of them we can control, some of them we can't control. What I found when I've gone to these conferences year after year is I get these great ideas and then I go home and I can't implement them. Yes. For any number of reasons, including the fact that I get so many great ideas that my life takes over when I get back and I don't know how to implement them. What I would suggest that you do, because you're all here for motivation, is try to, by the end of these 45 minutes, write down one concrete thing that you want to do in your class. I've included this slide just to let us know how far we've come, or maybe haven't come, in ESL and EFL over the years. When I moved to Japan 17 years ago, I've been teaching in Japan for 17 years. I started teaching when I was 10 years old. Thank you for laughing. Everybody else is like, oh, whatever. Thank you so much. So I have been teaching in Japan for 17 years. But I unfortunately did not start when I was 10. This was a situation I really encountered. Americans and Brits were really valued. In the city next to me, there was an Australian teacher. She came. And within a couple weeks, they said to her, could you please quit speaking with an Australian accent? We need an American accent. This really offended her, and rightfully so. But our textbooks were all American accents. This school was teaching American accents, and the students would be confused if we gave them a different accent. You won't really find this as much anymore in most countries as we're progressing towards many accents. So this is a good thing. When I started teaching 17 years ago, I was lucky to get a tape player. But I assume now most of us have a little more technology, hopefully. So we can count our blessings, right? The things that we do have. But if I think back to 17 years ago, there were a lot of traditional classroom goals that I still have now. What are some of your classroom goals?
Speaking.
Speaking? Okay, getting your students to speak, yeah.
Improve listening skills.
Yeah, improvement. Everybody just goes to the classroom and goes, well,
Confidence.
get my pay. Whatever it takes to make it through the day, go home and have a beer. Okay, anybody else?
Have fun.
Okay, yeah, that's a really nice one.
Or play games.
Play games, yeah, okay.
Increase the fluency.
Yeah, increase the fluency. Okay, in the most fundamental sense, the traditional goals are something like this. Teach grammar and vocabulary, teach speaking, teach listening, teach reading, teach writing. Traditional skills, right? Help our students get out of our face, basically, right? If they fail, they're coming back to us again and again and again. So we don't want them to fail, not only for us, but also for them, obviously, right? It's kind of a joke, but we do try to prepare them for the next level so they don't flounder. And you might be preparing your students for standardized tests or entrance exams, something like that, depending on the school you're in. I do a lot of TOEIC. Although we have these traditional goals, the media, the literature, everybody's talking about this new world that we're living in. And Obama has said, we live in a time when the boundaries between people are overwhelmed by the connections. If you think about traveling, I'm from the States, and in the 70s when you flew from the States to Asia, you had to stop in Alaska or you had to stop in Hawaii. The plane couldn't go all the way. It had to stop and get more fuel. But we don't have that anymore, right? I can jump on a plane and very easily go from Beijing all the way to Boston, direct flight. So just if you think about that and internet, you can see how much more connected the world is. Is there anybody who strongly disagrees with this statement? That this is part of what we're having to get our students towards, right? This interconnection. This is part of how I hope that we can motivate our students. Has anybody heard of New World Reality? They talk about it a lot.
That's a good one.
Okay. Anybody? New World Reality? Okay. Well, I'm going to talk about 4 points that they talk about in New World Reality. Some of it is controversial. It's all about this interconnection of people. The first point you can see is that we're using English as a lingua franca. I don't own it anymore as an American. I never owned it as an American, but some Americans thought they owned it. Some Americans probably still think they own it, but the world as a whole is using English as a lingua franca, whether we like it or not. But as English teachers, we're probably not sad about that. Because it's a lingua franca, number two, there's this ingrained knowledge now that our students are going to speak with native speakers, but they're also going to speak with non-native speakers. So my Japanese students are going to come over to Korea. They're going to speak with your Korean students in English. My students don't speak Korean. Do your students speak Japanese?
No, except for one.
Except for one. A few do, right? But the majority don't, probably. So probably we're going to have to use English for communication. Some students are not very aware of this, so sometimes we need to impart this knowledge on them. My students really still focus on America, America. So I really need to help them understand that they're actually more likely to use it in Asia. Even if a foreigner comes to my little town and they need directions, they're going to speak in English, right? This is also one of my research topics that my colleague and I do a lot of research on. The third idea is probably the most controversial, because it's this idea that in Japan or Korea or something like that, we start from a standard English. But we can add our own flavors of local culture, local pronunciation, as long as it's communicative. This is where places like Hong Kong or Singapore might have a few more issues because they don't like the colonization that went with English, and so maybe we should allow our students to speak Singlish. My Japanese students, if I say, do you want me to teach you Janglish or English? They all say English. Because, and I always ask them why, and they always say, well, because Janglish is understandable between Japanese students, that's just like my Japanese, so why would I spend 8 years learning a form of English that I can't communicate with? And I've just come from Hong Kong doing research. The Hong Kong students said the same thing. It's good that I have my identity somewhat within some form of variety of English, but I want to be able to communicate. And if it's too off the wall and I can't communicate, there's no point in that. So some kind of fundamental idea that we need to start with some standard English, let students have their own variety to an extent, but it has to be something they can communicate with. And the fourth point is this idea that we are moving away from Western cultures, that students can keep their own identity, but at the same time, we can teach some Western cultures and other cultures. But we can't hit every single culture in the world, so we have to be smart about what we do.
What was number two? Sorry.
Sure, yeah, I can go back. Number two is this idea that we're speaking with non-native speakers. Native speakers, but also non-native speakers. Yeah. Is everybody okay?
Yeah.
I just want to make sure. So kind of what we're having now is this cake. We have all these traditional goals, language goals, and then we have this second layer of the cake. Right? We have to get our students ready for this new world reality, make them global citizens. But with making them global citizens, we have three challenges, right? How we're going to prepare them, how we're going to empower them, and how we're going to equip them. They have to have cultural sensitivity. They have to have the ability to understand different accents. They have to be able to think about other cultures. But at the same time, the frosting on the cake is motivation, right? How are we going to have both parts of the cake and the motivation? Because if we don't have motivation, everyone's going to go, yeah, okay, whatever, right?
Sure.
Does anybody have any ideas? Just talk with the person sitting around you for like 30 seconds about any ideas you might have.
I do songs.
Good, okay. And what did you guys say?
Make them laugh.
Yeah, okay.
Speak of things that interest them.
Great. Everybody's ideas were very focused on making the students enjoy themselves and also understanding students' interests. Like this group said songs and this group said travel. But either that's something you have an interest in or your students have an interest in or both. If you have the interest, that can go out to the students. And if the students already have the implicit interest, then that's halfway to motivating them, right? So these are the three things that I've incorporated into my classrooms. Lots of image-rich materials, content-rich materials, and trying to give my students opportunities for active interaction with people from around the world. And like I said at the beginning, I've chosen these 3 things out of the things that I've been doing in my classroom simply because I think that you can use these with whatever materials you have right now. And something like image-rich materials, that's something you can take home and spend 10 minutes doing tonight and take in your classroom tomorrow, or Tuesday or Wednesday. Okay? So you'll be seeing these 3 points all the way through. But the first one is image-rich materials. And in addition to my experience, my argument for this is to think about what your students are doing outside of the classroom, how they're spending their time on their own when they're not being forced to do something. So, how do your students use English outside the classroom?
To swear at each other.
To swear at each other. Movies, yes, good. Music, yes. Music and movies are 2 huge ones, right? Anything else?
To say hello to foreigners on the street.
Okay. That's something, right?
It is
something.
Yeah.
When I'd been in Japan about 2 years, this kid went by me on a bike and said, "This is a pen!" He didn't say hi, he said, "This is a pen." And he was so proud of himself. Because I understood Japanese and he kept going, "I did it, I communicated." Well, it's a kind of communication, but he was proud of himself, right? So even these small things can be important. Okay. Yeah. When I talk to my students, these are the kinds of things they say. And it depends on your students, but movies, TV, listening to music, lots of stuff on the internet, right? The magazines come off the internet. Skype is on the internet. If you look at a lot of this stuff, it's image-rich. Movies, TV, the listening not so much, right? But the stuff on the internet has lots and lots of images. What kind of pages are your students using on the internet?
Neighbor. Yeah.
A lot of games.
Games?
A lot of
Yeah.
games.
Yeah, exactly. I'm pretty sure none of your students are using a page like this. Is that right?
No.
I'm pretty sure if any of our students go to a page like this, they're hitting the back browser as fast as possible. Because they don't, this isn't what they're using. They might use something like this. Right? They might use something like this if they've got a little bit higher English. This is CNN student page, right? But what you can see about both of the pages that I showed you are that it's very visual. There's not a lot of text, right? The eye is kind of drawn in different directions, but in a pleasant way, not in a violent, horrible way. It's not very linear. Right? And it's very interactive. The students have control. The students have power. They can download a map, podcasts. They can choose to watch the video. If they're going to read something, they choose what to read. It's very interactive. So when we're taking images or content into our classroom, these are the 3 points we could try and incorporate to try and motivate our students. This is what they already do outside of class, right? So if we can bring this into the classroom, could be good. We can also see that image-rich content can be very authentic. Students like authenticity. Right? My students are always saying that they want it, I want to understand real English, not classroom English. They want to understand real stuff. It can be enjoyable. It's been statistically proven, and we all said, right, we want to make our classes enjoyable to make students motivated. That's common sense. And when it doesn't focus on our own culture or our students' culture exclusively, it can help them develop sociocultural competence. Going back to the top layer of the cake, the global views. They can understand all kinds of things. These Spillerian Liskid making, if you want that, just give me your email address. I can send you a resource list for everything that's on the sheet. You don't have to write them down. And you might not find them so easily. So if we go back to this page and we think, okay, this might be something we want to try and look for. This is student book page. Appealing, right? For students, it could be appealing. Non-linear. Students have some choices. If they're going to take from this page and do something afterwards, and you have some choices, right? There's a map, so some traveling. Over here, it's talking about Times Square. So people interested in musicals, theater, the art museum, so you could pick up the art theme. The Museum of Natural History, you could pick up that kind of thing, right? So there's a lot of stuff. And here, they can click, they can go to a video. So there's a lot of choices that students get to make. It kind of mimics the 3 points. It's visual. And for low-level learners or mixed-level classes, it can be very, very good as well. There's not so much text. so it's not so scary to students who are a little bit worried about so much text. The images can help them understand it. On the other hand, the text can be a little bit more difficult for the higher level students because the images are there to help the lower level students. So something like this can be very helpful.
What are your students?
My
Why do you
students,
say my students? Yeah.
my students right now are a variety of ages, all the way from junior high up to adult. But I'm primarily teaching in junior college and university. But my students for that kind of page would be middle school.
Like 12, 13.
12, 13, 14, 7th, 8th, 9th grade. Yeah. So what can you do with those 2 pages? Just talk with your partner because you could add on so much with those 2 pages, right? So just talk for about 1 minute what you could do with those 2 pages. I'll put them back up. I think I'll put them back up. There we go. Okay. What could you do with it? If you wanted to add on a project, you wanted to add on activities. Yeah?
Might start with just forming some basic questions. See if they can form questions to ask each other.
I teach a debate class.
Mm.
The other website, CNN especially, would be great, but we don't have technology available for our students.
Outside there, you could, yeah. Can I do it outside?
Yeah, they need to do some research outside of class, so I can't really give them that.
Yeah.
This created the same idea, but about their home city.
Absolutely. Hold on to that one. Yeah. She said do the same kind of thing, but about your hometown. So that's a really nice idea. You can add on all these kinds of ideas, right? You can pick up, you can even add on. This came off the internet, and students don't have to be able to read it. They just need to look at the painting and the title. And you can add on to the art part of it, right? Because Picasso painting sells for record $106.5 million. You could explain that to students with the picture, and they wouldn't have to understand it. So you can supplement quite a lot.
Once they get past the.
Yeah.
I mean, the green leaf?
Well, you know,
Yeah.
you could discuss, even with easy English, right? Do you want this painting? That's very, very basic, you know. Do you want this painting?
Yeah, do you like it?
$106.5 million. Do you like this painting? Or do you like $106.5 million? Which do you like? I mean, even with very, very simple English, this year I'm not teaching 7th grade, lowest level in Japan, but you could use this in first semester English in Japan. The other thing you can do that's very image rich is video. Who's using video at all in your classroom, YouTube or anything? What are you using?
We do presentations at the end of the week, so if we're learning a song or something, we use YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Oh, you too.
I use YouTube.
We also
Me
use
too,
a
yeah.
lot of, we have what is called DVD class at our school.
Oh.
So,
It's 5 minutes.
no, you wouldn't do that. It's a little bit long.
It's like Little Bear, it's like
yeah,
Tom and
it's
Nickelodeon.
Magic School Bus, like,
Yeah.
you know,
Very
stuff like that.
lovely.
Yeah.
And then they sort of watch and then have to discuss and answer comprehension questions.
Okay, yeah. So video can be very image rich. You guys are using some of it. The problems with YouTube are that the language is not controlled. If you buy something commercial, you can get it language controlled and you can get subtitles in English. So that's the good thing. But what I want to show you with this to emphasize image rich is an activity. I'm going to show you a video, but what I need you to do is be in pairs and one of you not watch the video. The other person is going to explain to you what they see. There's not going to be any volume. You're not going to hear anything.
Okay.
So you're going to describe it to your partner without the other person watching it. And just to give you a hint, it's about India. Okay? Okay? Has everybody turned around? No cheating here.
Want to do it here?
Where's my, is this where I need to go?
Click the play button.
Yep, it's going to work.
Do you want to do this here?
Scott, go.
Anyway, I hate changing classrooms. It doesn't take much.
Okay, once again, the problem with the technology in the classroom.
guess I can take those blank sheets.
Here we go.
Oh, that's a famous film, the Taj Mahal.
What they're doing.
Okay, describe it to your partner.
Most famous
Thank you.
building in India.
Okay.
Taj Mahal is just, Himalayas now.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's showing pictures of the Himalayas. Doesn't look like this. Now we're in the forest. Now we're in the forest. And camels.
Desert and camel.
Right.
Flying an airplane over.
Mars. Oh yeah, okay, forest again. Forest, mountains, trees, beach.
You need to go up beaches. I know this is crowded.
Now river. And looks like a national center. New Delhi. National center.
Probably the Marvel buildings.
Show the map.
Side of
People in the city walking around, cars. People are going for a swim now. Somebody's going for a swim. Taking a shower, bath in the river. Games.
Where the people down.
Yeah, well,
Now they're going to a different city. Different city.
Okay, trade. So the other person gets to try describing and watching the video. It's a beautiful video. Yeah, exactly. I want to watch. Okay, here we go. Second half.
So, still something again easier. It's really never touching on the lines. It's ladies washing their faces with the dance.
Now we're inside it, maybe sure.
Got the Ganesha, elephant gun, big red elephant gun.
Orange, it's very colorful. It's very brown.
Putting the paint on the forehead. There's a guy just doing
Several shaman guys in their arms.
chalk or something on it. You guys know what he's doing?
Nicholas
Some
Nelson.
of the Taj Mahal, the panning out from the showing area, showing the map, where insert map aggro. This is
So it's still panning out.
just showing the pool
The-
that goes.
Now
Now
there's
they're
more
doing
Taj
the Taj
Mahal.
Mahal.
Probably from the river.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Like examined more
They're
time.
the Taj Mahal.
The birds flying
Okay.
across in front. Sunset.
How was that?
Excellent.
Oh, okay.
I know.
So they have to describe easy.
You have to command
Has anybody ever done that kind of thing in your classroom before?
describe it. 'Cause they-
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a junior high, no, I have a junior college class, which is probably the same level as many of your junior high school classes. And I've done this. Before you do it, you obviously need to do some brainstorming for vocabulary. There's going to be vocabulary students don't know. But if you do the brainstorming first, and then if you ever want to do this in class, what I would recommend is after everybody's done describing, you show the whole thing again with the sound. And then after that, you can do all kinds of exercises. But the students really like it, and they got all excited about it. It was really an enjoyable class. But you can see the power of images, non-traditional images in this sense. But you can use any video for this. But these kinds of National Geographic videos are particularly good because the images keep changing. If you have a dialogue, it's kind of hard to describe something. He's sitting there and talking, but I don't know what he's saying, and he's still sitting there and talking, and well, now she said something, and now he's, I mean, there's not much to describe. So if it's a travel sort of video, it's going to be a little bit better. So we can see some of the benefits of using images, right? It can inspire our students, hopefully. If we choose the right videos or we choose the right images, we can hopefully increase their interest, at least for 10 minutes a day, but that's better than nothing, and then slowly build it up, right? Maybe get them excited at the beginning, and then that'll hold through for part of the class. Make it more and more. Like I said, it might help the mixed level classes or lower level students. So there's some benefits. Does anybody have any real issues, problems, concerns about anything that we've discussed so far? Before we start to go on? Okay. Let's go on to the number 2, the content rich, which we hope is going to make students interested as well. What does content rich mean to you? If we're going to talk about content rich materials, we have to know what content rich means. What does it mean to anybody?
Text.
Text, okay. But not like the first web page that was 3 columns of text, right? I mean, that could be, right? It could be. A philosophy book, definitely content rich.
I think of liberal arts. Like
Liberal arts?
multiple
Yeah.
perspectives.
Okay.
Well, for language, I think of activities, motivation, getting them involved.
Okay.
Vocabulary?
Vocabulary? Okay. I think those are, yeah.
I just think of information that the students are interested in, like music and anything.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think all of those are good examples of content rich. But what we need to do is focus in on how we can get our students motivated by playing with their interests or having a content-rich quiz. And here you're going to see the advantage of images with questions. First, what's the image?
Where?
A whale. And what could the question be? It could be a number of things, but...
Where does he live?
Okay. Anybody else?
How much does it weigh?
Okay. You have to focus in. You'll see it in a second here. Here's the question. You have to focus in on this. This is actually a mic. It's taping the whales singing. Okay? So here's the question. Here are the answers. What do you think the answer is?
B.
Okay. The answer is, well, my clicker's not working. You're right, it's D. Very nice. 1 point. Okay. So you can do this kind of thing in class. I've got a couple more. But you can see that this can also be a good way for teaching some kind of grammar, right?
Is there a prize?
How long? There's not. I wish there was. There are 3 questions, but there's not a prize, I'm sorry to say.
There goes my
Clickers.
motivation.
I know. Exactly. The prize is, I'll give you a pin. No. Okay. So here's the image. What could the question be about, or what's the topic probably?
They all go hiking. Oh, mind you. They know
Okay. Some kind of hiking maybe?
Where is he?
Glacier, yes, this is what it is. Okay, it's about Mount Kilimanjaro. And here are the choices. What's the answer? My clicker's not working.
B.
B? A?
A.
A? The answer is, if I can get my clicker to work here, well, it was A. It was A. If you see some pictures taken from above, it's shocking how much they've shrunk in the last 10 years. It's really shocking. Okay, the next one doesn't have the image first because you'll see why. It's going to give it away way too easily. What's the answer?
Younger than 10.
The answer is B, and here's the image. How much does the image help you like visualize this compared to before, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because otherwise you really can't understand what a horse race in Mongolia looks like. You probably imagine some kind of horse with somebody wearing jeans or something. This really brings it to life, right? So this is an example of maybe using some content-rich image, making a quiz with probably a prize or bonus points or something, right? Okay, if you're interested, this is the site where I took those. Unfortunately, the images are not with them. There are about 20 questions. They're all National Geographic type questions. So if you want to have that.
Have you, can I ask a quick
Sure,
question?
of course.
Have you used maybe something like this as the way to brainstorm the vocabulary before doing the video?
You can do that too, absolutely. The only problem is you're going to have to find a lot of questions about India.
Okay. Sure.
But if you're really smart,
Yeah,
you could
you
make
have
up
the
the
time,
questions, right?
It is time
I'm kind of,
intensive.
not so much time is a good way to do it, right?
Sure.
So like,
That's, yeah.
and the thing is too, if you brainstorm for India, the students do the brainstorming,
That's a
then
good
they're going to
point.
think of the words
Sure.
that they might want to
So
use during
depending
the
on the
video.
level of your students,
Yeah,
right? So-
absolutely.
Sure.
With my students, I had them do the brainstorming
Mhm.
because then some of them had to get out their dictionaries and look up the words and something like that.
Mhm.
Because then they thought of the words that they thought they might use, and then some of them they never used, and that was kind of instrumental for them too, right?
Do you usually test this?
I
later?
don't.
Okay.
I don't test this because this is sort of just an add-on, something
Okay.
nice to motivate. I don't. You could. I sort of did this as a one-off. If I was using it with the textbook, I wasn't at the time. If I was using it with the textbook, then I could because the video actually incorporates a couple units worth of grammar and vocabulary.
Okay.
But I wasn't doing it that way. But you could.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good
thanks.
question. Anybody else? Yeah?
Images is, do you have another website you use for images?
No,
I
I
mean, I
just
use
get-
Google,
Yeah, I
Images,
just-
and that's it. But that's all I use. Is
I
there
just
more
get
out
a-
there?
Go to National Geographic website. Just, they have a search there.
Well, Flickr.
Flickr, yeah, Flickr.
Flickr is
Did
just.
you make that video, or was that online like that? The India one?
The India video is not online. The India video goes with this textbook.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So someone else from outer space.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's very graded, the language. If you listen to it, it's very graded. It has subtitles and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I mean, I can make that stuff, but obviously I don't have time to do that. So.
Yeah, that's the advantage of buying at least the video.
Yeah,
Or somehow getting it,
right.
right? The site has the questions, just the 20 questions, 20 or 40, yeah. Are there any other questions? Okay. So this is a traditional way that we might reinforce can, right? It's an information gap, which I kind of tried to sketch out. So I would have this sort of goldish piece of paper, and you would have that sort of silverish piece of paper. And I don't know whether or not Emily plays tennis, so I asked him, does Emily play tennis? And what do you tell me?
Yes.
Yes, so I write down yes. In fact, it says no,
Yeah, sorry.
but that's okay. Because that's part of the point, right? When you do this sort of information gap game, you don't know whether or not the students did it correctly. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter whether or not Emily, who doesn't exist, can play tennis. That's not to say I don't use these, because I do, and we all do. But if we can, after this, do something that's maybe a little more real, it might stick with the students a little bit more. So this is something that's a little more real. I hope you can see these pictures. There are 4. And the students using Ken have to determine if the 4 pictures are fake or real. Okay. So first one, can the orangutan skate? Do you think that's a real or a fake picture? Fake? Yeah, it's fake. Okay. Next one, can the dog do a flip? Yeah. I mean, that's pretty easy, but it's okay because you don't want the students to miss every single question, right? Next one, can the dogs bowl? No. You guys have very good eyes. Some students actually, I think it's real. Look a little closer. And the bird at the bottom is catching a ball. Yeah, that's real, right? So not that difficult, but surprisingly, some students lack a little bit of critical thinking. And so this can be a good way to just quickly emphasize can. And you can get all kinds of images off the internet. The other thing that we can do with real content is expose our students to not only Americans and Brits, right? Which is part of our second layer of the cake. That we want to motivate them to know more. So more about India. This is a part of the picture, part of the textbook from India, actually. But you can get all kinds of things. If you go to India Travel, the national India travel thing, you can get all kinds of stuff about India. Every country you're interested in. This is a page about fighting dance from Brazil. So if your students aren't interested in fighting dance, obviously you don't want to make materials that are that kind of materials. But if your students are interested in Brazil, this might be a way to pull them in as well. So these kinds of things. We don't really have a lot of time, but when I did the India video, afterwards my students had to write some kind of little research report. And so first they had to come up with a topic that they wanted to write on based on India. And the class has about 20 students. I'm lucky, it's not a very large class. And these are the topics that the students came up with. And then they each went out and they did a little bit of research, wrote a very basic English report. Their English is not, you can see their level. But these are the kinds of topics they came up with. Okay? Hi. This is another example just of how we can combine images and content. Yeah?
Sorry, were those middle school students that came up with?
Those were my junior college students who would have, but they would honestly have your middle school students level.
Really?
They really, really would.
It depends on
It depends on the middle school.
Well, it does.
Yeah,
Depends on the
okay.
grade.
The middle school students that I was teaching privately would be able to do much better than my junior college students. So it depends on your middle school.
I mean, if they can level 3 or higher.
If they can what?
already read those words.
Oh, so they had to use their dictionaries to come up with the topics, right?
Oh, right.
Yeah, they didn't just come up with the vocabulary on their own, but they thought about India and they thought,
Yeah.
what do I want to know about India?
Okay.
And then they came up with, they didn't know all those vocabulary.
Right.
This is just an example of, again, images and content going together. This is about a teenager from Russia, and she started her own fashion design company. had 80 stores. This is an example of a store. When you have this kind of content and you're doing pair work and one pair finishes early, there are all kinds of things you can do with it, right? I mean, if you have taught your students about 5 games, you can say, okay, today do this activity while the other teams are waiting. Because what do you usually do when one pair finishes early and the rest are still doing something? There's always that one pair, right? Way ahead of everyone else. My students, if I don't give them something to do, they're just going to sit and chat in Japanese. So I always like to have something else for them to do. So like in this kind of situation, you can have one student use the content. They cannot use any of the sentences that are written, but they can use the content, make a very simple sentence. It can be in pairs, 3s, 4s. And then the next student adds on to it. So Kita is the name of the girl. So Kita is a teenager. Then the next girl says Kita is a beautiful teenager. And then the next student says, Kita is a beautiful teenager, but she isn't normal. Okay, well, we would want to later maybe talk about how to use the word normal, because it could be considered offensive, right? But then they just keep adding on to the sentence. And so this is something that 2 or 3 or 4 students, when they finish early with one activity and are waiting for the rest of the class, might be able to do. Something like this. There are other activities like password. Does everybody know password? No. Okay. You have something with content, and I have a word from the reading. I can only give a 1-word hint, and my partner guesses. So my partner guesses journey, and I say no. And half of my hints aren't coming out, but the partner guesses action, and I'm giving 1-word hint every time until they finally get to adventure. Okay, so I give a hint, and I say exciting, and they say journey. Thank you. And then I say, and they say, and I say, oh no, it's not journey, sorry. And so then I say do, because maybe my students don't know action. So I say exciting, do, and then my partner would think, and they would say action. Well, then they know action, right? And I would say, no, but please think. It's not journey, it's not action, it's exciting, do, and it's person. And then my person guesses adventure, my partner, right? So this is a simple game where they are using the vocabulary just to sort of reinforce the vocabulary itself.
Do you let them use a dictionary on that one?
On this game, I do not.
Right.
No, because the whole thing is that they're supposed to be passing the clues back and forth, and it's supposed to be sort of fast. And I don't let them use a dictionary, no. Okay. I only have a couple minutes left, so I just want to go down to point 3, which is getting your students actively involved. And if you're in a hurry to get to the next one, please go ahead. There's 4 minutes left. Are you doing anything to have your students be actively involved with people outside of your school, internationally? No. Hi. No. Okay. Some of your students are probably on Facebook. I don't like to put my students on Facebook because I'm worried about whose friends of friends of friends of friends they're going to meet up with. There's not any control. But publishers are starting to get pages, and this page will come up at the end again, like this. And you can sign up for this right now for free. And you sign up, and it's only EFL, ESL, American and British students from around the world. So the gateway is through a teacher. That means that some 40-year-old sleazy man cannot be on the site. To me, that's very reassuring. I don't want that kind of person, right? And so within the site, students can work independently, and you can also work as a class. So independently, they can do things like this forum. You know, they're going to have some grammatical mistakes, but that's fine. The whole point is that they're going to meet up with other people from around the world. This forum is how do I say I'm sorry in your language. When I looked at it, 22 posts from 13 different countries. You can see the different countries. So the students, if they have internet access, but in Korea, it seems like they're really good internet access. They can do a lot of stuff. They also can do emails, book clubs, stuff like that. You as a class can do things like this activity. When we were talking about the New York page, she said, oh, we could introduce our hometown. This is exactly what this activity is. Thank you for leading into that so well. It only takes 30 minutes, but it's all designed and it's all stepped out. But the great thing is that your class does it, and you find a partner class anywhere in the world, or you find 3 partner classes, and they look at your stuff and you look at their stuff, and your students communicate back and forth about it. So in emails and in blogs and that kind of stuff. So your students have a purpose for making their tour of their town. It's not just making it and then you grade it and it's finished. Yeah?
Is this on the EPALS website?
It is. Yeah, this is an activity. This is off the ePals. So these are activities that take like 30 minutes. And I've seen that if a teacher is looking for a partner school and they don't find it very quickly, the moderator, the overhead moderator, will help them. Say, oh, I see you're looking for this activity, and this other school's looking for a partner and same age and same activity, so why don't you connect up with them? So you've got a lot of support within this as well as control. And it's step by step. It's really easy. It's no preparation. That's really good, right? You can do big things like festivals, and they're going to give you all the background, all the educational stuff that you want. They're going to give you all the stages. This is stage 1, and it has part 1, part 2, part 3, and then it says finished, go to stage 2, right? So they're going to really take you through it step by step.
epals.org?
Yeah, it's going to, and they've got a teacher's lounge. Here's the address. You can go there and actually sign up. I double checked last night. You can sign up for free. If you have any problems signing up or you can't do it for some reason, if you email Michael at Cengage, she'll get you signed up. And then you can put your students on it. Yeah?
Can I share a website with everyone? It's
Sure.
called Prezi.com. Do you guys know that? It's like a new, it's like PowerPoint, but instead of it being really linear, it's just on one page, and you can click on images and it goes close. It's like a 3D
Okay.
presentation.
Oh,
Awesome.
Prezi,
Prezi.
ZZ?
Yeah, Prezi.com.
Oh, okay.
Good.
It's
Yeah.
really good.
Okay. This is sort of the end of my presentation. I hope that, does anybody, these are my 3 solutions to try and bring at least a little bit of motivation in your class. Does anybody have any questions? You have approximately 20 seconds before it flips to 46. No? Okay. I'll be up here if you have any questions. Let me just put my email up here. If you have any questions later or you need the sources, the literature, anything like that, if you get home and you're like, well, what was it again that you said? Just email me. I'm happy to email back. But please put CoTESOL because it just seems like I'm getting lots of junk in that account. And you'll probably, I put the filter on quite high, so you'll probably go into the spam account. But if I see CoTESOL, I'll unspam you.